Chapter 4, Lesson 6, Divide Whole Numbers by Fractions. Our content language target today, content. Students will understand that dividing fractions is the inverse of multiplying fractions. Inverse simply means opposite. Language target students will demonstrate this understanding by using the reciprocal of the second fraction to solve the division of fraction problems. So finding reciprocals, divide 3 by 1/2 gives the same result as multiplying 3 by 2, which is called the reciprocal of 1/2. Any two numbers with a product of 1 are called reciprocals. So as you can see here, 1/2 and 2/1 are reciprocals, because when I multiply those together, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 1 is 2, 2/2 equals 1. So what we're doing is we're actually flipping the fraction, changing the numerator to the denominator and the denominator to the numerator, which is 2/1. So finding the reciprocal of 2/3, again, 2/3. The reciprocal means that I'm going to flip this fraction. If I flip the fraction, my numerator is now 3, my denominator is now 2. All I do is I switch those around. Number 2, find the reciprocal of 1/8. Same thing, 1/8. I'm going to change and make the denominator my numerator my denominator. And when I do that, I have 8 at the top and my 1 at the bottom. 8/1 actually equals 8 wholes. So to find the reciprocal of the number 5. 5 as a fraction is like having 5 pizzas, which means I have 5 pizzas and I have each pizza in one box. So that's the fraction for 5. So to find the reciprocal, I flip my fraction. The 1 is now my numerator, my 5 is now my denominator. To find the reciprocal, that would be 1/5. So here's some practice with the reciprocals. 3/5. The reciprocal, if I flip my numerator and denominator around, that's going to be 5/3. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to try these out on your own. Letter B, 1/3. Again, when I flip my fractions, my 3 is now my numerator, my 1 is now my denominator. Or you can simply write 3. And 11 as a fraction is 11/1. Again, I flip my fraction where 1 is now my numerator and 11 is now my denominator. So when we divide by a fraction, to divide a whole number by a fraction, we multiply by its reciprocal. That's the big key here, multiplying by the reciprocal. So my example is 5 divided by 2/3. 5 is my fraction, 5/1. I change the sign from divide to multiply, and reciprocal of the second fraction, or the flip of 2/3. 2/3, I flip that fraction around, and I get 3/2. When I multiply, 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 2 is 2. And then I have to put that in the simplest form, which means I'm going to divide 15 divided by 2. But when I do that, I'm going to get a decimal. But I don't want a decimal here because I'm working with fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Mr. Cutsforth's Clever page. Here it is. I'm going to look for that big polar bear right here. I'm going to click on his page. And at the very last one is a Simplifying Fractions button. I'm going to click on that. So when I multiplied, I got 15 over 2. So I'm going to use that as my fraction here. I'm going to type in 15. My denominator is 2. And I'm going to let it calculate it for me. And it's going to give me my answer as a fraction. In this case, it's a mixed number of 7 and 1/2. So let's look at example 4. It says find 2 divided by 1/3. Write it in simplest form. So here is 2 whole candy bars. And what we did is we divided each of those up into thirds. So here's one whole candy bar, here's the second whole candy bar. How many 1/3 do we have? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the answer is 6. How to show that using an equation as 2 divided by 1/3. We're going to use the keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction the same. We're going to change the sign from divide to multiply. And we're going to flip the second fraction. That's our keep, change, flip. So to do this, 2 stays the same. So I have to keep that as a fraction. How do I write 2 as a fraction? That's 2 over 1. I'm going to change the sign from divide to multiply. And I'm going to flip my last fraction. I'm going to find the reciprocal of 1/3. So my 3 becomes my numerator, the 1 becomes my denominator. And then I multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 over 1 is the same as 6. So let's show that again. We're going to use that keep, change, flip. So I have 7 divided by 2/3. I'm going to keep the first fraction the same. I'm going to change it to a fraction now, which is 7 over 1. I'm going to change the sign from divide to now multiply. So here I'm going to change my sign. And then I'm going to flip my second fraction. So 2/3 now becomes 3 over 2. And now I multiply. 7 times 3 is 21. 1 times 2 is 2. So again, I want to put that in the simplest form. If I divide, I get a decimal. And I don't want a decimal because we're working with fractions. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Cutsforth's calculator here. And I'm going to type in 21 over 2. So my numerator is 21. And my denominator is 2. And I'm going to hit calculate. And it's going to change that improper fraction to a mixed number, which is 10½. So letter D on our got it problems. We'll do this one together, and then I'll let you do the last 2 on your own. So remember our keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction the same. So 6 as a fraction is 6 over 1. Change the sign from divide to multiply. Flip the second fraction. So from 1/3, it now goes to 3 over 1. And then multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 1 is 1. 18 over 1 is the same as 18. Pause the video and try E and F on your own. Letter E, to change We're going to keep our first fraction the same, so it's 5 over 1. We're going to change the sign from divide to multiply. And then we're going to flip our second fraction. So we have 2/3, which is now 3 over 2. So then I multiply. 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 2 is 2. Again, 2 doesn't go into 15 evenly, so I have to divide. So I'm going to go back to my simplifying fractions calculator, and I have 15 over 2. I'm going to calculate that, and I get the mixed number of 7.5. Let's look at letter F. It's 4 divided by 3/4. So we're going to keep the first fraction the same, 4. We're going to change that symbol from divide to multiply. Oops, that's 4 over 1, by the way. Let me use my eraser here. Erase that. All right. So I'll go back. So 4 over 1